All right, in this tutorial we will talk about data structures. And a simpler term for data structures is collections. All right, and in order to better understand what data structures are, let's take this simple example. Let's assume that we had a group of 5 people, right? And we wanted to measure and store the weights of these 5 people. Now, one way we could store those values is by creating 5 variables from 1 to 5, saying, for example, the weight of the first person is, say, 100. Weight of the second is 150. Weight of third is 200. All right, weight of fourth, 250. And the weight of the fifth person is 170. Now, to store these weights, we had to create 5 variables, and therefore we need to keep track of 5 variables in our program. Now, this can create issues for us. So, one way to solve this issue is to simply uh, uh, place all these values inside a collection or a container of some kind, and then give one single name to that container or collection, right? And this is basically what data structures are. And when we talk about data structures, we have so many types of data structures where each has its own set of characteristics. And it depends on the need of you, the programmer or the data analyst, to decide on the appropriate data structure for your application. Okay? So throughout this tutorial, we are going to use the name collections since it's much easier than data structures. Okay, now uh, here let's take a look at the main characteristics of data structures or collection. A collection of data values, right? So inside our collection, we will place multiple data values or items, right? Item 1, item 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then give one single name to our collection, regardless of the type of the collection, all right? Now, stored under the same variable name, we've talked about that. Third, each item has an ID. So in order to be able to retrieve or reference a particular item in the collection, we need to identify these items by giving them certain IDs. Now, to access an element in that collection, we first reference the collection name followed by the ID of that item. Okay, so as we can see here, we start by the collection name. All right, we open square brackets and then we specify the ID of the item. Now, the last point is that we have various types of collections, right? We have, for example, the list data structure or collection. We have the dictionary, right? We have the set and we have the tuple. All of these are different types of data structures with different characteristics. However, all of them are collections of some elements. Okay. Now, let's talk about the first type and the simpler type of collections, which is the list. List is simply a collection or container of items under the same variable name, right, or the same name. And the identification or the identifier of each item in our list is called the index or the position, right? Let's remember the name index. So each item has an ID called the index. And here we have two simple lists. The first list is called pets and contains the items or the values dog, cat, bird, rabbit, and fish. Now, the index of the elements, the indices of the elements in the list start from number 0. Okay, so the index of the first element is 0. The index of the second is 1. and naturally the index of the last element will be 4, which is the number of elements minus 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. The same thing goes for the second list here, which is called the grades list. Okay. And we have 5 items in our list. The index of the first element in this is 0, the same way it is for the pets list. The index of the second element is 1. The third is 2, fourth is 3, and the fifth element is 4. Okay, now how can we retrieve or reference the dog element in the pets list? Right? It's very simple. As we can see here, we first start by specifying the list name, which is pets. We open square brackets, and then we specify the index of the element we want to retrieve. So dog is the first element, so it has the index 0. So it's bits of 0, right? And that will return or output the element dog for us. Okay. Now, what if we wanted to access this element, rabbit? Then we say bits, the list name, and the index, which is 3. So bits of 3 will return rabbit for us. Now, let's take an example from the second list, which is grades. So, to retrieve the third grade or item in the grades list, we would first specify the list name, which is grades, followed by the index of that grade, which is 2. So grades of 2 will return 92 for us, right? Grades of 3 will return 84. Grades of 4 will return 89. All right. So this is what lists are all about. Right. It's very simple. Multiple items inside the same collection. Right. And we have one single name for that collection. To access a particular item, we specify the collection name or the list name followed by the index number. All right. Now, another type of collections is dictionaries. Okay. Now, a dictionary is still a collection of items, but the format of these items differ slightly from lists, where each item is represented using a key value pair. So we're not having single items in the dictionary. We have key value pairs, right? So, for example, let's look at this student dictionary. So the first item is this whole key value pair. This is considered an item in the dictionary. This is another item, a third item, and the fourth item, right? So a collection of key value pairs. Now, in order to retrieve a specific value from our dictionary, we would first specify the dictionary name, followed by square brackets, and between the square brackets or inside the square brackets, we will place what? The key. The key of the value we want to retrieve, right? So student of age, we will go here and it will retrieve 36 for us. A student of weight, the weight named, the key named weight will retrieve 166 for us. Okay, so what if we wanted to retrieve the value 3.2? Then we would simply say student square brackets, right? And then between quotations, since it's a string value, it's a GPA. And this whole value will be replaced with 3.2. Okay, it's very simple. Just remember that the items of a dictionary are not single items, but key value pairs. All right. Now let's take some actual examples here by creating some lists and dictionaries using Python, right? So for example, to create the grades list, we'll first create a variable named grades, okay? So the name of the collection is nothing but a normal variable. Just think of it as a normal variable. But rather than placing one single value in it, we will place a whole container in, sorry, a whole collection inside that variable. So grades is equal to, and we want to create a list, and therefore we use square brackets. Whenever we want to create a list, we use square brackets. Whenever we want to create a dictionary, we use, sorry, curly brackets. And this is important. This is part of the syntax or the rules we have talked about before, if you remember, right? So inside the grades list, we want to place five integer values, right? 78, 96, 92, all the way to 89, all right? We have another list here called bits. Inside bits, we want to place string values. Remember, string values are placed within quotations, unlike integer and float and boolean values. Okay, so whenever we want to store a string value, you place it within quotations. Now, after each element, we place a comma. Comma, a comma is the separator between the items in our collections, regardless of its type. Okay, so first element is dog, comma, cat, comma, bird, comma, rabbit, comma, fish. Okay, now here the third collection is a dictionary. Okay, now we create the name of the dictionary, called student, and we set it equal to this dictionary right here. And as we discussed, to create a dictionary, we use curly brackets, not square brackets. Inside the curly brackets, we start specifying our key value pairs. Remember, the items are key value pairs each. So this here is the first item. The key is name, and it's always enclosed within quotations, and the value is Bob. And we separate the key and the value using the colon sign. All right, colon separates the key from the value. All right, now comma. Why we use comma? To place the second element or key value pair in our dictionary. Age within quotations, colon, and then we specify the value. The type of age is an integer, right? So it's 36, comma, to place the third key value pair. Weight is the key, colon, 166 as the value, right? The same thing goes for GPA. Once we are done, we simply close our curly bracket. And please, always keep track of the different types of brackets or parentheses you use. So whenever you open a bracket, make sure that there is a matching closing bracket or parentheses for it. So we open this one here, we must close it at the end. Opened here, close, open, close. If you violated the simple rule, then you will get a syntax error. Okay. Now, let's assume that we wanted to retrieve or print out the cat element here. Okay. Then we would simply say print. All right. And between the parentheses of this print statement, we would say what? Bits. Okay. Square brackets. And what is the index of this cat element? 1. So we say bits of 1. Now there is like a line under this bits variable. Why? Let's see. Because bits is not defined. Why? Because the bits list start with a capital P, not a small p. Because remember, Python is case sensitive, so bits here is different than bits here. So let's modify this variable name, say bits. So let's print out bits of 1 and see what we will get. Right, you see here, we get the value of cat. What if we change 1 to 3, for example? Then the printed out value will be rabbit. 0 for dog, 1 for cat, 2 for bird, and 3 for rabbit. Okay? What if we wanted to retrieve the last grade in the grades list? Then 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So bits, sorry, grades 4. Print it out, and we get 89. Okay? What if we wanted to retrieve the age of this student? Then we specify the name of the dictionary, student. In square brackets, we open quotations to place the key. All right. And then we specify the key or the key corresponding to the value we want to retrieve, which is age. Let's see what are we going to get. As you can see, get the age 36 in our output here. Okay. Now, for example, in the grades list, we can actually manipulate the numbers we want the way we want, right? So, for example, we can say if we wanted to add the second and the third grades, then we would simply say something like this: grades of 1 for the second element plus grades of 2. So it will be 96 plus 92. Let's see the result. 188. All right. So that was it for the list and dictionary data structures. Make sure to take a look at the remaining types of data structures like sets and tuples and see how different they are from lists and dictionaries. But for now, for the purpose of this course, we just need to know about lists and dictionaries. All right. Also, make sure to get familiar with the syntax we use to write the different lists and dictionaries, like using, for example, square brackets to surround lists and to use commas to separate the items, right? To use the format key value pairs in dictionaries as opposed to lists and so on. All right. So yeah, that was it for this tutorial. I hope you found it informative, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Take care.